whole, we will get a firm understanding of the value of a holistic approach, and also throughout the morning we will get an understanding of where the gaps are. So as partners in the room and innovation stakeholders, we know where we can step in and where we can develop programming. We will do a deep dive into the essential digital skills that are transforming careers today, and explore the skills necessary for children and young people to thrive in the 21st century. Remember, we're looking at 2050 and then what it looks like beyond. The approach that we take looks at foundational skills, employable skills. Our focus today, of course, is digital skills, transferable skills, and vocational skills. And our approach is designed to ensure that we have holistic development, that we look at these skills holistically, and we enable individuals to succeed in various aspects of life. This includes education, employment, and of course, personal development. We have a stellar panel for you today. So I'm going to call them up one by one. They're going to come up, and can we, if you want to do a round of applause, which is great, to give them a little boost of confidence, could we save that for after they're all seated? Please, I'd like to invite the Director of Science, Technology and Innovation for the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, Professor Ladislas Munich, to the stage, please. Professor Munich is a renowned researcher and leader, currently serving as Director of Science, Tech and Innovation at the Ministry of Education. His department, among others, is responsible for the overall coordination of programs and related initiatives towards integration of digital technologies into our education sector. Professor Munich is an integral character and at the forefront of several flagship programs and related initiatives, which he'll share today, that are meant to enhance the learning outcomes and educational management across different levels of education throughout the country. Our second speaker today is Dr. Sampaio Siafu, who is a lecturer, but also National Coordinator for the Integrated Program for Out-of-School Adolescents, fondly known as IPOSA. Dr. Sampaio is an experienced doctoral researcher with a demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry, and later with out-of-school youth and adolescents. He's skilled in nanomaterials, spectroscopy, Microsoft Office, and nanoparticles. That's like a huge mouthful. And he has a strong research professional background and graduated from the University of Dar es Salaam and Nelson Mandela African Institute of Science and Technology and Hanyang University. We'd also like to invite to our podium today Ivana Damjanov, who is country lead for the Inclusive Digital Economies program at UNCDF. Ivana has over 20 years of experience in banking and financial inclusion, and she currently leads the development, design, and implementation of UNCDF's Digital Economies program in Tanzania. Next up is a voice that we're very excited to share with you this morning, Miss Millennium Anthony. Millennium is a youth champion and lead facilitator at the Youth for Children Innovation Hub, which is based out of Co-ICT. She is also part of the ITU Generation Connect Youth Envoy. Millennium is a lead champion in the digital skilling of young people. As a lead facilitator at the Y4C Hub, she has imparted her skills in design thinking and coordinated an incredible program called the Smart Girls Program, which focuses on growing digital skills among adolescent girls. And last but not least, definitely not least, Dr. Daniel Baheta, Chief of Education at UNICEF. Dr. Baheta is the Chief of Education at UNICEF's Tanzania Country Office, and he's got a long history with UNICEF, which spans actually across the globe, having worked in Sudan, Kenya, and now Tanzania. Prior to this, Dr. Baheta worked with the Government of Canada as a Senior Development Officer. Dr. Baheta has a PhD and MA from Kyoto University in Japan. Can we now give them a round of applause? Thank you. I'd like to invite Professor Mnyone to set the stage for us, to take us back into history so that we can go forward and look into what our future looks like. Karibu sana, Professor.
Good morning. As I have been introduced, I'm Ladslaus Mnyone, the Director of Science, Technology and Innovation in the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology. I have very short time, and I'm just required here to set a precedence for the rest of the discussions. So I'll be mindful of my time, but let me say that the government strongly reckons the massive benefits associated with the integration of digital transformation in the education sector. And the most critical focuses or benefits that we envisage and would like the private sector and other contributors to equally focus on are: one, use of digital solutions to expand access to educational opportunities, number one. Number two, advancing inclusion in the access of education. We like the education to reach everybody because this is a common good and is a human right. Number three, enhancing the relevance and quality of education, building digital technologies that enhance lifelong learning pathways, because learning has to continue throughout. And of course, strengthening education and learning management systems, and finally, monitoring learning processes. As we think of digital transformation, we really make sure that the thrust towards that emanate from this kind of focuses. Number two, let me again say that the government is there to lead the way, to show the priorities and the strategic directions. But the government alone cannot be able to take us to the digital transformation that we are dreaming about or we are envisaging. So the government also understands the huge contribution of the public, private sector, and therefore always call in efforts from the other side to make sure that we achieve digital transformation. So towards the digital transformation, there are quite a number of efforts that the government has done, of course, with the help of the private sector, because these efforts are always blended so that we reach what we call the last mile digital transformation. Number one, which is probably the key, is about the curriculum and the policy of education and training of 2014 that has been improved so that we have a version of 2023. If you look at the curriculum, it really focuses on aspects that would help us as the country to undertake digital transformation efforts. That's why we are talking about the children starting the coding and other aspects of computer literacy at a very young age, because this is one of the very, very key strategies. But if you look at the teacher education, there is a much emphasis to ensure that the teacher education takes a very high attention and consideration of digital transformation. As they are in the school, they have to make sure that they are trained on that, but also the government insists that we focus on professional development. When they are already at work, what do we do to make sure that they stay abridged on digital transformation efforts? But again, you have witnessed, again, that the government is doing quite a lot in terms of preparing the environment to accommodate digital transformation. You think of the buildings, you think of electricity, you think of connectivity through various means. All these are made to make sure that we are well prepared to digitally transform in a timely and effective manner. There are quite a number of things, but I'm not here to like reiterate everything that the government has done, but I just want to show you that the direction that we are taking. But we are seeing that in most of our higher learning institutions, when you talk of ICT, there's a very big attention in there. If I may reiterate the fact that if you look across our higher learning institutions, we have around 161 ICT-related programs. All these are meant to ensure that our country picks the pace in the digital transformation. But also, there are regular training that are done to teachers. If I just consider the last 1 year, we have around 400 teachers that have been trained on certain aspects of ICT and related technology. So you see, this is something that is happening, but as I said, the bottom line is that the government does this with development partners and the rest of the the private sector, and that's how we should continuously move. But also, the government insists a lot in terms of monitoring and evaluation. As we speak, the government is looking into the possibility of realigning the different M&D systems so that we can have as much information as possible, not only on education, but several other aspects that are aligned to education and more particular to the digital transformation. Because we have to know whether the interventions that we are making a difference. And we have to know that early enough so that we can take corrective measures whenever we are supposed to do that. And that will also inform us where we need to put more investment in terms of financial and other forms of resources. So currently the ministry is working very, very strongly in that to make sure that things are converged and we can get the information going forward. Of course, the financing and all that will also be part of such kind of a system. But also we have, you are aware of the digital library that is being run through our Institute of, Tanzania Institute of Education. This is just one way to see to it that Tanzanians, particularly children and youth, can get access to digital content. But we understand that there are also several private sector companies and organizations that are working on that. But our wish as the government is to see how we can converge those efforts so that we end up with public educational resources that can be accessed even for free, so that the inclusivity that we are advocating is given proper attention. But also, the government has thought across and started developing what we call a digital education strategy. Actually, we already have the draft, and that draft will have the opportunity for different stakeholders to have their opinions so that before we finalize it. But the reason why we would like to have a digital education strategy is to make sure that we are very well defined in terms of the priorities, in terms of where we would like to start and where we would like to go. So we wanted this to be clear, not only to the public sector, but also to the private sector. And the next thing that we will do immediately is to come up with the implementation framework, so that is strategy. We see exactly what we need to implement and how we need to implement that. We do the costing, and then we have a very, very proper monitoring and evaluation in place to see how we are doing that. But on top of that, we have started efforts again to sort of develop critical guidelines that are needed to support integration of digital solutions into our education system. One of the guidelines will cover the basic education aspect, how should they integrate and such kind of things. The other one will cover TVET, and the other one will cover higher institutions. And might also have a guideline that talks about the use of emerging technologies, artificial intelligence in particular, as an icon towards that, so that we have a proper guideline of how we can make use of that in the education sector in Tanzania. A good thing is that there are quite a number of areas that we do not need to reinvent the wheel, because several countries have already done that. But through our Ministry of ICT, there's also a plan already in the pipeline to come up with a artificial intelligence strategy of some kind, which I'm quite sure that one will be tied up with other emerging technologies that are closely related to the artificial intelligence. So we would wish that the stakeholders also to think towards that direction. But again, we have to set the standards in terms of the devices or appliances that are related to the digital transformation. If you talk of laptops, talk of tablets, and what have you, different infrastructures, we must have standards that as the government will say, okay, you have a donation or you want to support us in this, but this is what we want in this particular area, so that we do not end becoming as a dumping place. So we are very, very keen on that, and would wish everybody else to help us think through that direction. But also, we have been asking ourselves a question that if you go to the schools today, primary schools, secondary schools, students are not allowed to use phones. Yet, we advocate inclusivity in digital transformation. So that is a question that we need to think through, that how do we make sure that the students can use the phones effectively and achieve what they would like to achieve. Because we think there could be several mechanisms to enable that. Kwa sababu if you stop them from using when they're at school, wakirudi nyumbani wanatumia anyway. So the idea is not to stop them from using the phones, but we have to define exactly how we would like them to use the phones productively and towards the direction that we like to go for. But let me say that now that in the strategy that we just finalized, which awaits, of course, more contributions from the stakeholders, there are key aspects that we are focusing on. But all these are converged into three. Number one is capacity building. Capacity building, we must have the human resource that will enable us to reach there. And then two is the connectivity. 3 C's. 2 is the connectivity. And the other one is we call content development. So we have content development, we have connectivity, and we have capacity building. So every single effort that we think of, I can assure you, we will finally converge into these 3 C's. So all the efforts that the government is making is also advocating for the public sector and all other stakeholders to see how we can derive to that. Maybe the question is, should we equally focus on all this, or where should we put more weight and some things of the kind? Probably this is something that we need to discuss on and see how we can define our direction going forward. So, in order to speed up the digital transformation, on top of several achievements or initiatives that are in pipeline, as the government, this is what we propose. Number one, we have established a common platform for all the ministries that are closely implementing the aspects of digital inclusion. So we meet so that we know what is happening and so that we can align our priorities accordingly, and we can also align the funding that we go to the digital transformation. Afterwards, we see how we can call in now the private sector. That's number one. But number two, we're establishing like centers of excellence in digital transformation, so that we use these ones to allow the country to have the capacity to do top-notch research in these areas. Because as a country, we would like also to become contributors into the technology. We do not only want to end up as users, because if we do it in the country as well as contributors, we end up with highly customized technologies that will probably be more useful to our country. Number three, there are many companies. There are many companies that are approaching us. I have a good technology, I have this and that. Sometimes you end up with hundreds of these companies. Now the question is, how do we balance so that at the end of the day, we go for those that are really, will really help us make an impact? So one of the things that we could do is to do some sort of a survey and see what they are doing and come up with the top priorities and partner with those so that we develop highly customized digital solutions together. And that is something that the government has already started doing together with the other stakeholders. But also, we have to think of how do we align resources across. We have many, many contributors. But if I ask you today, that do we know who does what and which resources we are putting in which particular aspect? So the challenge is, how do we align our efforts so that we do not end up duplicating, but we end up having the impact much more timely than so those are kind of questions that we really need to ponder. But how do we invigorate research and innovation towards this particular aspect? But do we know of the human skill set that we already have in Tanzania completely? Do we know that? Do we know the gaps? Because at the end of the day, we might say that we have many, many people who are trained in the ICT, but we might realize that they are probably in certain aspects and they are missing in certain other aspects. So we are considering doing a critical sort of, some sort of mapping so that we define the critical skills that are required to enable the country to digitally transform and see what we have and see how we can complement. And in that case, the initiative like now seeing how the diaspora would contribute to this kind of action that will be brought in. Because currently the ministry is developing a strategy that is required to help us promote the deployment of a diaspora. Because we know there is a huge potential there, particularly towards the digital transformation. So you see quite a number of initiatives that we think we should go for. And I thought it's good that I mentioned this to you, because as stakeholders, we have to think through and see how we can help each other achieve the targets that the country is achieving. Unfortunately, my time is very, very limited. I would have wished it to go on and on, but please let me end here. Thank you.
Asante, Professor, and asante for the 3 C's: connect, capacity, and content. And that's something that we'll be talking about this morning. Can I now invite Dr. Sempeo, who will talk about the work IWTz does in utilizing digital tools with out-of-school adolescents.
Hello, good morning. As introduced, this is Sempeo speaking, and I would really like to say something to state a pace. And this is all about the human capital. And we really know that the economy of any particular country depends on the human capital development. And in developing this human capital, you actually need to engage education as a very key aspect to develop the human capital. And how do you educate now people to ensure you have a good database of human capital? Is either you educate them through the formal learning or through the non-formal learning or through the adult learning and education. And now we know back 2015, our country had a study, and in that study, we had found the presence of more than 3.5 million out of school in the country. And now the question was, this amount of youth, is it possible to train them so that you build skilled human capital that will assist in developing our own country? So that was the question. And professors just finished here talking of having more than 161 courses going on in higher learning institutions in the country. But the question is, can we find these youth within the higher learning institution attending the state programs? The answer was no. Now, what do we do to ensure we bridge this gap, we as a country? Now, we in the government, from the Ministry of Education, we know they gave us the mandate at the Institute of Adult Education to ensure we develop an appropriate program that will be suitable for this group of youth. It was out of that UNICEF was engaged by the government, came on board to work closely with the government and engaging us at the Institute in developing the program we have just had that is called Integrated Program for Out-of-School Adolescents, and that is IWTz. So this program was developed from the beginning to address key 4 learning areas among the out-of-school youth in the country. We all know now how we name the out-of-school in the country. We call them panyarodi, we call them prostitutes, we call them, there are many names that we call them. But what we want is to develop this human capital so that we can tap their energy in building our country. Now we decided to develop this program, shortly it's called IWTz, to ensure we bring on board youth who have never attended to school, completely not attended to school, and those who dropped off the school, and when they join the program, they will start learning literacy. And then they will go to learn life skills for the purpose of, keeping them more aware of themselves and how they are expected to do in this country. And then we went forth to train them on entrepreneurship, and finally, on the pre-vocational skills. And the intention was to generate what we have called a post-empowerment clubs within the learning centers and nurturing these clubs into micro-industries. And we have been able so far to develop several micro-industries in the country out of the out-of-school population here in Tanzania, including boys and including girls as well. Now, in the course of implementation, we had found that youth within their clubs, when they're now starting developing the micro-industries, they were experiencing some challenges. The issues of digital inclusion came on board. How can they advance their skills without our presence in the classes? How can they, promote their goods and services using digital technologies in our absence? Now, it was that time now, our brothers UNICEF, they came and say, I think now it's time for all of us to work together to ensure we integrate digital technology within the program. So it was that where we did about 4 things. The first thing that we did was to ensure we review the program itself to ensure the learning outcomes, they do accommodate the aspect of digital technology. Now, the professor was talking of the higher learning institution. Now we are saying, Tanzania, we as a country, we are not only targeting higher learning learners, but we can even meet the learning needs of the out of school through this program. So we revised it, and we did. And the second thing was now to change the formatting of the books they're using, the modules, to digitalize them. So what we did, we created animated-based modules. And these learners, even if they are in the localities, in the villages, they can seriously use their mobile phones to learn what they could have learned in the presence of the facilitator. We are so much grateful for UNICEF's support in this because it has greatly transformed learning among the out of school. And the government is also happy with that. The second thing that we did was to engage youth themselves in learning ICT. Now with this, we opened the first 4 centers in the country, and we were critically surprised to see the out of school who are not the PCM graduates, we know that. They can now code, they can do the programming, they can work with robotic systems. So we were surprised the first time when we brought the youth in Dodoma for Makisatu to demonstrate the competences that they have in the digital skills. And now what I said, now I know that ICT can be trained to anybody, even if you have not gone through the PCM thing. We are challenging now the status quo, and we are sure we can demonstrate to the world that out of school youth, they can be useful in our country if we decide to invest in their education. Now we have a number of the post-employment clubs in the country that are critically engaging in the ICT. Others are, they're producing a number of solutions. The traffic lights, we have seen them. We have seen others even, developing systems that are interacting with the radars. And we had to go seriously and assist them because they were actually creating some police cases. But they were on the training. The third thing that we did was now touching now from youth themselves, learners, to the facilitators, those who are training them. Because in Tanzania, we have a network of what we call the PPTCs, the post-primary technical centers. We are so much aware of the presence of the secondary education schools in the country. Most of us, we had forgotten that there are a big network of the post-primary technical centers that are set to train youth on the skills-based training. Now we had now to go to the centers where learners are attending classes to train now on the facilitators. Now it was started on the government now, coming from the support from UNICEF, now had engaged now TEA, which is now the government, to support the development of the first ever IPOSA STEM hub here in Dar es Salaam. And it has so far trained about 400 facilitators who will now go back to the schools and train the youth. So this is the third thing that we have done. And we are so much grateful to the government to support this. And now she's coming to take me. Now we are also so much grateful that even the Cisco Academy is now coming on board to support the training of the facilitators. And you see now Millennium is there. She is there. We have been able to engage now the graduates from University of Dar es Salaam to give them a challenge. With your competence, are you able now to come and support IPOSA? Create a system that will facilitate their learning, but also it will also help us in the government to manage the program accordingly. Now you can see they are here. We have now seen the integration now of the out of school and the land community at the higher education. So we are so much proud of this. This is Mpeo, who was then at the University of the Rest, but now I'm happily working with the out of school at the Institute of Higher Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simpeo, and thank you for the reminder that one about the technical centers that are across the country that need to be enhanced and need content. As Professor also mentioned, content is important, but also that when we think about our educational value chain, we need to be thinking about upskilling not just youth, but also our facilitators as well. And they're an important part of this value chain. Thank you for the reminder. So, Ms. Damjanov, there was, I think both our previous speakers mentioned this need for a mapping and to understand where the skills gap is. So we're really excited to have you here and to have you take us through that and add more insight into it. Karibu.
Thank you for having me. I have a presentation, so I don't know. Oh, perfect. Great. UNCDF, let me just give a background. So what I'll be talking about is ICT upskilling in Zanzibar specifically. And this is something to look at in terms of what the needs are, what the demand is, and then what we could potentially do as well. UNCDF, my team specifically, we work on building inclusive digital economies and contributing to countries' digital transformation. We do that through focusing on 4 different work streams, which we consider holistic approach. It would be policy and regulation, open digital payments, inclusive innovation, and then skills. Within that, we have a program that we're actually implementing right now. It's under the D4T, the EU-funded D4T program. It's on Tanzania inclusive digital economies, and it focuses primarily on policy, open infrastructure, and inclusive innovation. And the one thing that's missing, and it's been bugging me, is the skills component. So this is why we've been really trying to find some kind of angle that we can also work on in terms of skills, because these are kind of the foundational building blocks of digital transformation. So through our work under the EU-funded program, we have, I think, 2 things that are quite interesting. One, we established a fintech acceleration program called PesaTech, through which we support various fintechs through a technical and business assessment and support process. And then we've also been working in Zanzibar, supporting the Silicon Zanzibar, the establishment of Silicon Zanzibar. And those 2 activities have actually allowed us to speak to a lot of the founders, the innovators, the startups, the fintechs, the entrepreneurs. And they are the ones who, you know, when we started looking at what issues they faced, and we actually did a fintech startup, a mapping we did a couple of years ago to truly try to understand what issues they're facing and how we can help. One issue that came up was skills. And it's not necessarily their skills, but it's the skills of their employees, the skills of the people who work with them, and specifically the IT skills. The big issue was finding and retaining ICT professionals. One thing I just wanted to clarify, because I know we're going to be speaking a lot about this, is digital skills and ICT skills. So digital skills for us is a broader range of abilities related to digital, whereas ICT skills is going to be something that's going to be more on professional ICT-related work, which could include data analysis, systems management, and other software development and other fancy types of work. But what we did is we decided to try to understand why the ICT graduates who are coming out of schools and who are plentiful in Tanzania, why they weren't getting the jobs that are out there. And the jobs are private sector, but then also public sector as well, right? So they could be employed by either sector. Digital skills, ICT skills are very much in demand, but we're still seeing that there's a gap somewhere. So what is this gap, and does it exist, and what can we do to improve it or to narrow it down? So in this research, what we did is we separated into demand and supply, looking at the demand for ICT workers, demand by the government, and then demand by the private sector. And then we looked at supply. Supply meaning really focusing on those that produce ICT skilled labor, higher learning institutions. So this won't be necessarily secondary schools or primary schools, but we're really looking at the specialized institutions. What we found, I won't go through all of them, but I think the critical ones with the private sector demand, a big issue was talent shortage. I think that confirmed what we had thought, what we have been told, and confirmed the different findings, difficult to find the qualified ICT individuals, especially regarding data analysis, digital marketing, and software development. The other area that was critical, or that we thought was really insightful, is that many of the MSMEs actually recognized, understood that without these digital skilled workers, they are losing out in terms of competitiveness. They understand the bigger institutions, the bigger MSMEs, the big corporates have the resources and are able to attract these skilled workers, but they're falling behind in that. And then I think the other things that they recognize that this is a much larger issue than just their own institutional efforts and needs, but it's what's at stake, and that they see that there's a need for collaboration across different sectors with the government, but then also with the higher education institutions. Public sector demand was also interesting. I think we do understand, and you rightly said, that the government recognizes, and there's a demand, an ambitious demand for digital transformation. They understand where the country's going, and they understand that there's a need to get on board. But, however, they also understood that there's a need to invest in training and upskilling and transformation. However, the reality is that the digital skills gap is prevalent in the institutions themselves, and the digital skills that are lacking also prevent the government from providing effective services to their citizens. On the supply side, we have the higher education learning institutions. Key from them, I think, when we talk to them about, what is preventing you from producing market-ready graduates? Why can't these kids find jobs? What is missing? How can we help? One big area was the curriculum. I think this is a curriculum that is developed in the mainland, right, in Dodoma. It's created at a certain time. It gets through approval ratings, then it gets rolled out, people are trained on it, and then it's incorporated. But with digital learning, and especially all the technology skills that are relevant, especially for the markets right now that are out there, I think there's a consensus that all of these curricula need to be updated. And not only do they need to be updated, so they're more in line with what the market demands, but they need to be agile as well. So we can't have a curriculum that's updated every 10 years, but there has to be a system or a mechanism that allows specific types of IT training to be developed and rolled out quickly as the technology is changing around us. That said, how do we do this? This is also a question on resource limitation, right? So I think this is one of their frustrations, and the resource constraints are apparent across the board. A shortage of qualified faculty, access to training for the faculty, access to technology, software and hardware, and then also, once again, internet connectivity. Ultimately, we all believe, and especially the higher education institutions see, that we can't move forward and we can't reach scale without collaboration. This collaboration, it just recognizes the importance of collaboration, but also we need to align with industry needs. We need to tap into some of the industry resources they have. If they have experts, let's bring them in. If they have internships, let's try to connect them. Let's find a pathway for some of these graduates to more readily be market ready and to be employed. And I think just to wrap it up, some of the recommendations that come out of this, I think you can probably guess. Specialized training is necessary. And I think this type of training is not just ICT skilled training, but it's also a blend of soft skills, right? Because it's not really only about how well you can code, but it's, do you arrive on time? Can you write an email? You know, that's appropriate to the audience that you're writing to. Can you manage a team? Can you understand how to start and finish a project? So those are all soft skills that need to go hand in hand with a lot of the digital skills. The other thing is also a lot of this training can be online, but we found that pure online training doesn't always work. It's hard to retain and to encourage and to incentivize kids to keep doing just online training. So a better approach is blended, where you have a mix of in-class and out-of-class training. Strengthen the educational systems to deliver demand-driven ICT training. I think that is obvious. I think the faculty is keen and interested. They understand what's going on around them. They understand that there's a need for them to keep up and how they can keep up, but those services are just not offered to them. Build partnerships and really define the roles for each player. I think we can't move forward without partnerships. So that's partnerships, whether it's with development partners, whether it's with other different specialized facilities, such as hubs, incubators, but in the existing universities as well, and then also with the private sector. And then with that collaboration, with everybody on board, you can actually start creating a pipeline. And that pipeline has the potential to be sustainable, which means that you don't need us to come in and finance and tell what to do, but it'll work on its own. You'll have a nice pipeline from graduates who have internships with private sector, who then move on to employment with these private sector partners, and then continue that knowledge. And that knowledge doesn't have to even be, employed with a standalone firm, but can also be accessible outside of Tanzania and outside of Zanzibar. So the skills that they're getting allows them to really improve their employability, higher income, enhanced career opportunities, entrepreneurship, innovation, and then of course gender diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivana, for underpinning the need for collaboration and partnerships, and that the approach again is to really enhance the entire value chain, and that soft skills are just as important as the digital skills as well. Miss Millennium, who really embodies everything we're talking about today, and is a great example of what happens when partnerships and collaboration come together intentionally. Millennium, can you come in and share your experience? And you give us hope. I'm just going to say that the work we're doing is impactful and possible. So, karibu sana.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I see a lot of young people inside this room, so I am expecting more energy. Good morning. Yes, thank you very much. As our moderator said, my name is Millennium Anthony. I come from the Youth for Children Innovation Hub, which is under UNICEF Tanzania and the University of Dar es Salaam. But I'm also a youth representative to the International Telecommunication Union. as the ITU Generation Connect Youth Envoy. So I represent the voices of young people in discussions about internet and technology in the international stages. I am going to be speaking mostly about young people who are the biggest stakeholders in the internet and in the technology field. And I would first like to give some of the things that I do at Youth for Children Innovation Hub, but I also share some details about the program, about the Smart Girls in ICT program that we do at the Hub. First, at Youth for Children Innovation Hub, our main role is to, first, we envision having a future where young people are the center of development. So young people are engaged, young people are actually present in the rooms or in discussions that involves their issues. So at Youth for Children Innovation Hub, our vision is also to empower now these young people with digital skills, but also innovation and creativity. So what we do is we train all these young people to have access, but to also know and identify challenges that they face in their communities. So what they do is we provide to them challenges where they get to work on the challenges, meet the stakeholders, see how these challenges are existing in the communities, but also see and find and brainstorm the ways that they're going to be solving these challenges. But apart from that, from all these activities that we do at the Hub, what our innovators or the students get from the Hub include other different skills like leadership skills, yes, problem solving skills, of course, and then we also have the innovation, yes. And I think for me, this is really something very important. As I have seen, I've been at the Hub I've been at Youth for Children Innovation Hub from when I joined the university in my first year. And if you would see me the point that I joined the Hub in my first year, and now you're seeing me today, we're like two different people. I couldn't speak, I couldn't express myself, I was a bit shy. I don't know, but I just had this kind of big challenges. But now, through these activities that we do at the Hub, including all these innovation activities, I am now able to train and mentor my fellow young people. Yes, so through different programs that we do at the Hub, I train these young people, mentor them, lead them throughout the process, the innovation process, until when they're coming with all these products. Yes, and the other program that we do, which is the Smart Girls in ICT Tanzania, first, now we have these young people who are like from 18 to 35, let's say, but then we have this other group of young people who are still in the lower schools. Yes, so the Smart Girls in ICT program mainly focuses on bridging digital divide in these students in lower secondary schools, especially girls. So now, through the program, we've been able to run 5 cohorts, and we just completed this year's cohort, our first phase of this cohort in April. So we had almost like 300 students from across secondary schools here in Dar es Salaam, where they were taught on how to identify challenges in their community, but then come up with innovations that are going to address all these challenges. So I think for me, really, I see young people as a very important stakeholder in all this innovation and technology fields, as they're the ones who are contributing to all this in terms of ideas. They're the ones who are having sharp ideas, good ideas, because they're the ones who are using most of this technology and all this. And yes, so through all this initiative, including the Smart Girls in ICT, the Youth for Children Innovation Hub, I have witnessed the power and the transformation that technology and innovation has. So I would really encourage for young people, those who are taking ICT courses and those who are not taking ICT courses, I'd really like to encourage you to take part in this, learn some digital skills, because in any field right now, we are really undergoing the digital transformation. It's really important to have all these skills. You need to know how to use to do a meeting online, you need to know how to use a Zoom, you need to know Google Meet, you need to know all these Google technologies and all that. So it all starts with all these small skills that you gain along the way. And my journey really, for me, it has been a very nice journey, as I am really loving what I do. And now I can say that all the digital skills that I've attained throughout my journey until right now are really helping me and are the ones which are assisting me to put me in the stages out there. So it's all these digital skills, all these things that I learn with all innovation and technology that are putting me out there. They're the ones which help me to get in the international stages and represent young people. I have represented young people in different countries. I have represented young people in Japan. I have represented young people in Ethiopia. I have represented young people in Rwanda. I've visited a lot of countries. And I cannot emphasize this to you young people, fellow young people, how important having all these skills is important to you. And then in terms of accessing for digital skills, shortly, I would say some of the challenges that I have noted after having all these years of working with young people is first having limited access to a technology, where we still have a very large group of young people who are not connected to the internet and technology, especially those who are in rural areas. And they also need to be provided these tools or these spaces where they can learn these skills, but also have access to the internet, learn online different skills. But also we have all the gender disparities. So through the Smart Girls program, I have seen how our communities are still having challenges in terms of gender issues, where we still have a very large community of young girls who do not have, are limited to having access of digital skills and ICT. Some of them are even discouraged to take all these courses. So I think those are some of the barriers for young people in terms of acquiring digital skills. And I think some of the approaches or strategies that we can use in addressing all these challenges, first is having a multi-faceted approach where stakeholders, including the civil societies, the academia, the government institutions, the technical communities, all these to work together to ensure that young people are able to acquire all these skills, but they're also able to access different funds to support in the all stages. But also we need to have more investment in the digital infrastructures so that these young people can be able to get enough also education, inclusive education, but also foster a culture of values and support technologies for all. And I would say for my last words would be, fellow young people, I cannot say and overemphasize how important it is for you to be in these kind of rooms, because as you have seen, we have big people here on stage. So having you all here in this room also gives us an opportunity to get inputs from you. What are the challenges that you're facing in terms of acquiring all these skills? So I would really like to encourage you to keep more taking part in all these events. If it's being in the rooms, if it's being in the discussion, be there. And if you're there, make sure that your voice is heard. Some of us just attend events just to sit, but then it's really important because technology, internet is all ours. So it's really important that our voices are heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Millennium. I saw somebody in the front row smiling very proudly. I'm not going to call her out, but I know there are some Y4C, members in the house. Can you just wave, all our Y4Cers? If you're with the Y4C Hub or you've been through the Y4C Hub, put your hand up. Don't be shy. Wave, put it up high. For the rest of us, look around the room and see who has their hand up. These are young people that have gone through the Y4C Hub and have learned about human-centered design. And that's what Ms. Millennium was talking about. Putting people, putting young people, putting communities, and putting people at the center of the solutions that we're building, so that we're building with people in mind and not the technology in mind. Really building solutions for the communities that we're in. So if you're looking for a new hire, if you're looking to learn something new, these are some of the people from the Y4C Hub that you need to engage with today. They'll be here the whole day, so make sure you find one and have a chat with them. Mr. Baheta, are you ready? Are you ready to talk to us about how we can take all this learning, the journey that Professor started, and talk about what is on the mind of a lot of young people in the room today? How do we go through this entire journey, and then how do we get to the other side and get a job? How do we earn? How do we close that loop? And as an ecosystem, kind of what is our view on this approach? And we'd love to hear how UNICEF is convening partners and collaborating and really building an incredible cohort of very able, as we've seen with Miss Millennium, very able human capital. Karibu sana, Dr. Baheta.
There's lots of pressure, lots of pressure, lots of pressure. Habari za asubuhi. Seriously? Seriously, seriously. I'm a teacher by profession. I will not take this. As a good teacher, I will not take this. Good morning. Good morning. You could do much better than that. Good morning. Good morning. Look, you know, as a good teacher, I start the class with a question. Do you know what the definition of technology is? You know the word technology, what does it mean? Don't Google technology people. Everybody know. Does anybody know? Anyone knows what the word technology means? Raise your hand if you know. If you don't know, you are in trouble. So we're starting with the interestingly, let me define, because you see, if I read it, it's a lot easier. So the word technology originates from the Greek word techne, meaning art or craft. Logia, meaning study or knowledge. Therefore, technology can be understood as the study of knowledge, technique, skills, method, process use, the creation of development and application of tools, machines, systems, materials to solve problems or to achieve a specific goal. That is the word technology. So when we talk about digitalization, when we talk about technology, this is what we're talking about. So let me do three things. I always say this to my children and they roll their eyes because it has never been three things. I always say, let me talk about three things, but there are never three. But it gets you thinking. So I'm gonna be fair to you. I'm gonna say three things. I'm gonna sneak a couple, but I'll keep them to three. Number one, I want to talk about what does UNICEF do, what is our role, and how are we connected to the topic we're talking about. Number two, I want to talk about some principles. You've heard them many, many times, so I will not repeat them in that sense. Number three, I want to talk about how can we holistically approach this. But here is my goal. Inside, deep in my heart, I am Pan-Africanist. And I say this with pride because my goal today is to make you think today, this moment, this hour where you're sitting here. I want you to think about what is my role to contribute in all of this. Because I'm gonna pose a second question. You see, I'm sneaking already some issues. Second question is, look at yourself today. Everything you have in your hand, I just want you to take a moment. Your clothes, your iPhone, the camera around you, the speaker, everything in this room. Very little of it is made in this continent, correct? Are we in agreement? The clothes you are wearing, the cotton is produced here, but the product has come from outside. Why? Because we don't have the technology. Did I define the word technology? Are we not able to do all of those things? We can, but we're not doing it. So what is your role? To transform and to transform the country. So we talked about the policy, we talked about the out of school on how we connect, we heard from a young person on how this needs to be done, we have worked some of the challenges we have addressed, we have done it all. But what is our individual responsibility to get us there? How do I produce my own things? How do I get, you see, the difference is between using the drones to do technology and to make the drone yourself, to do the technology. And we can do both. We can do both, correct? The continent, because Rwanda is starting us. Rwanda is manufacturing the drones. They were putting them themselves. And I think we can do that in Tanzania as well, correct? Who's going to do it? You. So I want you to inspire to think this, all this policy, high level talk is about this. Simply, we want you, the next generation, to be able to create, to make things for the country. This is really it. So in this sense, let me talk about what UNICEF does. We work with the government, we support the government, and I work very closely with these two very handsome gentlemen that you see on in the podium. Daily we work to improve policy, to access. We have about 3.2 million children who are out of school, so we work to give them access to come to school. Number two, we try to improve quality of learning. Now, quality, what does that mean? Quality means we need to make sure the teachers are trained, there is a learning teaching material that is approachable, usable. And here's another thing you'll hear. All of us complain about education, but when I look at this beautiful room, when I look at each and every one of you, and don't be shy, just raise your hand. How many of you have gone to the public system in this country? Please raise your hand. You're the product of public school in Tanzania. Public school. Look at you. So we're not doing so badly. So you should be proud. You should clap for if we have been able to produce as many of you in this room, so our system is not dysfunctional. It's working. We need to do more. We need to improve it, right? So that is the work we're doing. How do we improve it? How do we give more access? The second focus is we know there is a learning poverty globally. Like you have kids at school, but they're not learning, right? So we're trying to solve those problems. The third area we're working is we need to convert learning to skills. Because when I went to school, and I'm going to tell you I'm very young and handsome, so please don't judge me, huh? I'm 53 years old. When I went to school, it was just about learning. There was no TV, there is no digitalization, there was no computer. So when they were preparing me to take over the next generation, the basics were very simple. It's for me to get information, to be able to use it so I can work, to become a public servant. Really, that was the objective for me, to be a doctor, to be an engineer, to be, to be able to, but the complexity now is you need to be engineer, but you need to be technologically savvy. You need to be a carpenter, but you need to have technology because everything is digitalized. Even the hammer is going to be digitalized because obviously we're not going to need the carpenters the way we need them because we can actually have what? A robot to do it. But who's going to operate the robot? Who's going to write the program for the robot? So we need to transform our education system in order to shift from what we've been doing traditionally, just learn like myself and a couple of Abizes I see in the room. From that, we need to move to technology. We need to move to new thinking. So those are the areas where we need. So to this, we need to look at certain principles. And I'm also using my technology to remind myself. So let me tell you about some of the really core principles. Some of the principles we need to apply. It needs to be equitable. Digitalization has to be equitable. We need to give it to everyone, whether children with disability, if there is in a rural area, it has to be equitable. Whether you are poor, everything we do on the digital space has to be equitable. We need to look at formal and non-formal. We have already told you about our program on the informal, but it needs to be also looking at all children. We need to really have online, offline. We need to have high-level leverage on tech, but we also need to use low technology with mobile. We need to make sure we combine everything. We need to digitalize resources, but leverage on value-added innovation for disability and inclusivity. We need to also acquire literacy and digital skills. It is very key. I want you to understand this. There is a difference. People need to be literate, but they also need to have digital skills. You cannot have digital skills if you are not literate, correct? If you are going to operate and you are a farmer, you're going to use a machine to farm, you need to be literate. So we need to really think on how we're going to do that. We also need to look beyond technology. We need to really look at, we need to look at other things that make sense. We need to also look at the skills, the traditional skills. Here is the thing, a lot of people say, in this continent, we need to develop ourselves. I'm sorry, no. I am really sorry, no. In this continent, we have survived for the last 2,000, 3,000 years, correct? I am from this continent. What we needed, access to fair, to open knowledge and skills. And that we need to really, really focus on. Because there is a lot of really good things that we have that we need to maintain in our culture, in our society, in our tradition, that we need to digitalize. We need to, I want you to think this. This is maybe the most transformative thing I'm saying to you. We need to digitalize our values. We need to digitalize our system, our culture. We need to really be innovative. And I think those are some. The boss is here, so let me end by saying the last 3 points. We need to coordinate, and we need leadership. And you heard it in the other day also from Ambassador John. We need to really have cost that is sustainable. We need really to look at capacity building, but we need to go beyond this capacity building of just training and so on. It needs to start early. We need to start with our children as early as possible. But at the end of the day, here's what I want to say. You, the next generation, if I was speaking to Daniel, I'm 53, Daniel at 15, if I was speaking to Daniel today at 15, and if I speak to Daniel who's gonna come 50 years from now, what will I say him about the continent? I will tell him, you, the people who are in this audience, this generation was a transformative generation. Because, you know, we really love our YouTubes and social media, and we're really focused on this use of technology. But I want you to shift from usage of technology to making technology. Here is the message for you. Stop just consuming technology, create technology. Be the change. Be the creator of technology. Be the owner of your own destiny. And you need to really lead us in this, because we are too old to do this. We can create the policy, we can invest on you, but you need to help us to get where we need to go.
We thank Daniel of 15 and Daniel of 53, both. But thank you for reminding us again that it's a holistic approach, right? And we're not just talking at a tertiary level of university or adolescent, out-of-school youth or secondary schools. We're also talking about how young do we start with learning. And I'd never thought of this before, but digitize your mind. That feels really like Will Smith and iRobot, maybe, Terminator, but I like it. Thank you, Daniel. So in the spirit of design thinking, this is what we're going to do. We're going to curate the next session together, all of you and me. We're going to think about, I'll give you a choice. Do we play UNICEF roulette? Which means that there's no snake in the kikapo, just to let you know. This is not Snake Charming 101. We have questions. Random questions in the kikapo that they can pick out of the kikapo and they have to answer it. Or we can take a question from the floor. Where do we take our chances? We're not condoning gambling here, but we're saying, what do we do? Random question or question from the floor? Okay. But we're going to go by cheering. If you want to do a random question, don't raise your hand yet. You raise your hand. Random questions come from here. If you want that we do a question from the floor, then you raise your hand when I ask the question. Do we need to practice or we got this? We got this. So, random question, raise your hand. You can raise both hands and a leg if you want as well. We're open to all that. Okay, question from the floor. Okay, I don't know. It looks even to me. So we'll do one of each. Yeah? Perfect. Who would like to ask a question from the floor? Ah, that was the hand that went up really quick in the back. Okay, can we get him a mic? The gentleman in the blue shirt at the back. Tell us your name and what you do, and then ask your question. I'd like you to keep your question to under 60 seconds, okay?
Thank you. My name is Aaron Kazungu. I'm from Kese Group. We deal with timber tile construction and wood crafting materials. Okay, my question comes like, the idea there, we are talking about innovation for competitive economy. But this means that for we to succeed in this country, we need both two technical skills. For us, if I may be technical skills, it doesn't assure me that I will succeed to be competitive in economy. It means I need technical skills, which is innovative skills, and I need managerial skills, which is in a competitive economy. The problem which is currently disturbing our country, and I may take the example for civil engineers, different engineers, we find that we are producing a lot of engineers who can bring innovative ideas which are huge and can compete in the world. But the problem comes, we fail to compete because we don't have that managerial skills. That's why we find that a lot of companies of construction are failing, because we lack that managerial skills. We get assured that when we become competitive in technical skills, we can compete in the world. That's the first thing. The other thing is that to people who are supporting us, the sponsors like there, the UNICEF, from UN, USA, stuff like that, you are coming to support us to innovate. But the question is, are you ready for you to be our customers when we produce our goods to sell in your country? Because when we produce, you become the straight. You can't even trust our goods.
I got your questions. Thank you. Okay. Who would like to respond? Okay. Please go ahead, Daniel.
I can start. I can answer the second question because it's the easiest one. He said, you know, you will produce something and will we buy? I think that's a fair question. It's about fair trade. It's about trading between us and them. But I think maybe we need to reshape the question. I think we are UN agencies. So when we are from the UN agencies, that means we don't represent any particular country. We are members. We're governed by member states. But your question is very good. But you know, when you produce something good, your product will attract people. So the purpose of our work in technology is to be able to, like, you know, I will go back to the word technology. The word technology means you create something, you develop something, and if it's good, it will be used. Let's start producing for ourselves. First of all, in this room, I told you we don't have enough things. So the product we need to get is it should be for self-consumption to start with. And when it's really, really good, it will go international, yes. But I think once the product is developed, the work is done, it will be used internally, then we will expand to the neighborhood in the continent, and then we go global. So I think your second question is very valid. It's about fair trade, and I support it. But let's start creating the technology. I can assure you, when you produce something good, the buyers will come. I promise you. I think if you produce very good suit, buyers will come. If you produce good shoes, buyers will come. If you produce good phones, buyers will come. It will be cheap and reasonable, and I think buyers will come. Around the life skills, the question on the life skills, I think, is very important. You're saying, and Dr. Helen, you are here, so you need to hear this, and the professor and the policy makers. What the question is, we need to teach life skills. We need to teach 21st century skills. It's not just about learning the subject, but we need students to learn how to communicate, how to sell, how to manage, so that is part of the new curriculum shift that the government is making, but that is a very critical question. Every student that finishes university should be able to go through life skills as well, how to prepare themselves to how to dress, how to interview, all these skills should be included in the subject matter. Often we're just focusing on learning science, and I think that's an area with the competency-based curriculum, I think we're improving, but I think we will get there. But that question is very, very valid. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Beheta. Dr. Sampaio.
Just a small thing for the first question, which is also very valid. The current education training policy, if you read it, it is actually based on the lifelong learning. And that is a call to all of us to embrace that we have graduated from our schools, but when we are now interacting with the real world of work, we see the gaps. And these gaps, should kind of take us to that. And it's a challenge to higher learning institutions, to training centers in the country to ensure we provide opportunities for lifelong learning. Because you're a nice civil engineer, but now there is a gap. We need to be learners until we die. So this is why the current policy is very clear with regard to that. The aim is to ensure the human capital in the country is developed even after graduating from the studies.
Thank you. So this is what we're going to do now. I'm going to stand in front of each of our speakers, and we're going to do a clap meter. You're going to clap. The person with the highest or the longest claps will then pull out of the basket, okay? So I'll work my way down, and then we'll see who has the longest clapping. The question is, how can young people be motivated and engaged more to participate in digital program skills? What strategies have proven most effective for you and for those in the White House Tea House in maintaining their interest and commitment?
Hey, thank you very much. You people clapped. Okay, anyways. Yes, so how do you engage and motivate young people to participate in digital skills programs? I think for me first is, the first thing that we can do is first making these young people know of opportunities that are available in their communities. So for example, Dr. Sempeo has spoken about the IPOSA programs. So, and then we also have the Youth for Children Innovation Hub. We also have different spaces or institutions where these young people can learn and acquire different skills. So first is to make all these available institutions, organizations, programs across the country be known to these young people. Some people, maybe here we could have out-of-school adolescents, but then maybe they wouldn't have known about the IPOSA programs. So I think one of the things first to start engaging young people, first letting them know of opportunities that are available in their communities, but then to motivate, I think here what we can do, the motivation to young people, it could be, I think one of the challenges that young people face is getting all these resources, if it's let's say the computers, having access to internet, but also funds. Young people have a lot of ideas. People want to do big stuff, but then do they have the cash? Do they have the resources? So I think one of the things that we're going to motivate all these young people is to first provide them with all these resources. I think it's going to be pretty much easier for them to implement whatever the brilliant ideas that they have in their minds. And what strategies have proven most effective in maintaining their interest and commitment? I think first, I mean, from my side, I really encourage peer-to-peer learning. I have seen it work. When young people explain things to each other, it's more understandable than if there's just this big gap. So first would be encouraging all this peer-to-peer learning, allowing young people to be present and to provide training or to mentor their fellow young people, just like how we do the Smart Girls in ICT program, where we allow these university students to train the secondary school students. So this is a bit easier for even these younger ones to learn, okay, so I have this bigger sister who is, let's say 24, but she's doing this, he's doing that, so it's a bit much easier for all these young people to adapt. But again, I think another one, it could be, yes, resources, yes. For them to be there, the resources have to be there. If the resources are not there, it means young people are not going to be in the room. But also engaging young people in discussions that involves them. If there is any particular discussion involving the internet, if there's any particular discussion involving technology, it's really very important to have young people in the rooms. And their voices should be heard. If it's the challenges that they face, they need to air out the challenges that they face. We might think that they need this specific solution for them to move forward, but then they might have another idea or another problem. So yes, that would be my response for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Millennium. So this is how the game is played. Daniel has already spoken. Dr. Sempeo has already spoken. And Ms. Millennium has already spoken. So now you have two people in the hot seat. I won't identify them because I know you know who they are, and right now they're hoping not me, not me, not me. But do we have any questions for the two people that are in the hot? Oh, that was quick. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to call on this guy here on the right, gray t-shirt, who told us he went to local school. Where did you go?
Mwimbili Primary School, Azania Primary School, University of Dar. So
you're in the right place. Any UD people here? UDSM? Yeah, wave at each other. Hi.
Great.
Edgar, who are you? What do you do? And which of the two hot seat people is your question for?
So I'm Edgar. I'm a father of 3 daughters, aged 9, 6, and 3. So I'm going to flip the question, not to the people, but to everybody in this room. The world in 2050 will be so different. I don't even know how it will look like. I don't know how that marketplace will be like. So how can I, as a father, prepare my daughters to earn income in 2050 where there's a lot of unknown? Over to you.
So this is an audience question? Or oh, okay, nice. Right, anybody in the audience would like to tackle that question? Ooh, silence. Oh, thank you. Tell us who you are and what you do and how many daughters you have.
Hi, my name is Paul Bomani. I'm in tech. I have 1 daughter. So I probably don't know the extensive answer or the solution. I'm trying to figure it out probably as much as you are. You probably have a 3-year head start from me because my daughter is, she turned 7, 2-year head start. What I'd say though is one of the things that I'm trying to instill with my children is taking them through my journey. So whatever I'm doing professionally, whatever I'm trying to build, have them understand what I'm doing and not do what some of our traditional parents did, which was leave them out of the discussion when it comes to things like financial management, budgeting in the household, why they're going to the school that they're going to, the decision-making process that we're going through as parents. So involve them through that journey. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do that I'd encourage others to do. It's probably not the full solution, but I think it's probably part of preparing them for the future.
Thank you very much. Edgar, are you satisfied? I was just curious, show of hands, how many people here have daughters? Okay. Oh, you're all making notes, I hope? I see a hand in the back, I'm gonna take it. Who's your question for? Okay.
If I were in his shoe, by the way, my name is Sarah Robert Mroso. I'm in a Youth Diplomatic Icon as a member, but also I'm an alumni from Center for Foreign Relations. but currently it's known as Dr. Salim Ahmed Salim. Well, I would answer Mr. as follows. Well, you should organize your children or your daughters, tell them how the society is, educate them that it's not only about educational knowledge that you get from the school, but there is also involvement within the society. They should evolve within the society, but also empower them by creating confidence through them, how they should first personalize themselves as how to present themselves, how to talk, how to evolve with other people that they meet with, but also try to empower their talents. As we know from our growth, we acknowledge some, I would say some talents. If they love music, try to take them through the industry of music. But if they love business, try to empower them, even selling sweets, and see how they would make profit and earn money, but also how would they control the money in terms of spendings and expenditures. But also lastly, if I were in his shoe, I would try to plot them through the journey that I am in. For instance, if he's working under United Nations, then you would also evolve your children in how they would get into United Nations, but through if it's an innovative idea or any other activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm not going to take any more questions, but our speakers are here all day and tomorrow, so make sure you reach out to them. I'm going to put Ivana in the hot seat because she's like, what about me? What about Zanzibar? We need to do this. I'm going to put Ivana in the hot seat and have her pick something out of the basket.
So my question is technology and innovation, and specifically, in what ways is emerging technology being integrated into your digital skills training programs? Can you share an example of how specific technology has enhanced your training efforts? Ooh, that might be a better one for UNICEF.
Well, maybe you can talk about what you're doing with PESATEC and how does that link to digital skills and training?
That would probably be the most logical one. So with PESATEC, we do support fintechs and payment-enabled technology startups. And I think a number of things, we take them through a boot camp. We do actually a technical analysis of them, of their product. We do a business analysis of them. We take them to a intensive boot camp, and then we provide them with different types of coursework. So I think two things that we do which is interesting to ICT skill development. The first one is during the boot camp, instead of just involving the founders, we also involve the developers. Because what we found is that frequently the founders and the developers, the software developers, don't speak the same language. They don't have the same vocabulary. And different understanding of what needs to be done and what direction they're heading. And that can cause a lot of rift and a lot of tension in the relationship, which means that there's a lot of turnover. The second thing that we do is we do incorporate and invite a number of specialists who come, and I think this cohort we have, Tian, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have AI and how we can better incorporate AI into products that they are offering. And the second one is cybersecurity, which is a very popular course. So those, I think, are examples of what we're trying to do to ensure that the fintechs are abreast and are aware of what's going on in the sector and how can they stay and increase their competitiveness.
Thank you, Ivana. So, Professor, you started all this. Can we come back to you to close? Karibu sana.
First of all, I should congratulate and thank every one of you for the presence and the contribution. I'm quite sure that the contributions of all of us might not be today, but they will come at some point, depending on the position that one is. But otherwise, this was a very good discussion, and I'm quite sure that this is something that will continue. May I say three things? Number one, I entirely agree that the focus in digital transformation and related set of skills must focus on children and youth, because these are the ones that are supposed to drive us ahead. Number two, we have different levels of education. We understand that the higher learning institutions are in a relatively higher level compared to the basic education. So probably more of the efforts should focus on the basic education, and those will be connected to the higher learning institutions. Fortunately, there is a big project that is going on in the higher learning institutions, which among other things is also doing curricula and all that. So let's see how we can join this. Number three, how do we get the public sector and private sector work together harmoniously in this particular endeavor? Because if you look across, probably the resources that we have already used, if they were properly aligned according to the priorities and all that, probably would be far ahead than we are today. So let's think of how we can coordinate these efforts so that we can move ahead. The last one, there's a lot that is going on in terms of discussions like this, in terms of research and several other initiatives. How do we make sure that whatever is being deliberated from all these different sources is aligned and cascaded to the decision makers and goes to the implementation? This is something that all of us, from the individual level, the group level, institutional, and the countries as large, we have to think through together. Thank you once again, and congratulations for this great session. Thank you.
Thank you so very much to all our panelists for your insights, for the learning you brought, but also for bringing your whole selves to the discussion today. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. I have a couple of announcements, so please don't leave just yet. If you have an orange or a green badge, lunch is available for you in Komazi, which is out the door to the end of the hallway and then to the right. Orange or green badge, the only way you can get in is an orange or green badge. So if you have one of those colors on your badge, karibu for lunch. We have another session this afternoon that I'd like to share at 2 o'clock. We have a session with IWTz2024 and Fungo, and we're talking about driving Tanzania's economic competitiveness. If you're interested in seeing young people that are making money, young people that are having impact, young entrepreneurs that are making changes in terms of how to sell, how to find your market, looking at policy, come by this afternoon, 2 o'clock at Ruaha Hall. Tomorrow morning, if you're interested in how to go from research to commercialization, how do you take your research out of academic institutions or out of institutions in general, and how do you commercialize it? Again, how can you take it to market? Tomorrow's session at 2 o'clock and is in Ruaha Hall, and this is by Fungo and the British High Commission. We also have a session tomorrow morning, which is a session by UNCDF. So this is Ivana and, okay, UNCDF team, stand up. If you're gonna clap for yourselves, you better stand up. All of the UNCDF team. So this is the UNCDF team who have self-identified. Thanks, guys, for making my job easier. Their session is on the path to inclusive digital transformation and insights that they've developed over the last year. It's going to be a very exciting session, I think. You've seen how the team are, full of energy. That's at 11:30 in Ruaha. If you're interested in talking about young women and girls and how we can break the glass ceiling, how we can make sure we have parity, how we can make sure we can level the playing field that we know is very unleveled, how we can empower more women to be able to do what Millennium is doing, right? And to really hold their own in the digital space. UN Women is running a session tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. So we're doing our session at 8:30 in the morning for UN, 9 o'clock for UN Women, and we're going to be in the room that's down the hall. So tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, UN Women has a session. That's it for me for now. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you in the afternoon. Yeah, can we get a group picture, please, of our panel? Can we also get a group picture of everybody? So if our panelists also stand here and then you stand here, could we take one of everyone with the panel? Okay, so 2 pictures. Right. Is that okay with everyone? We do a whole group picture. Cool. So panel first and then whole group. Yeah, you can stand. Following instructions, Marlene. Maybe closer together.